Bible over to 1 Chronicles chapter 12. 1 Chronicles chapter 12. I get this question a lot. People say this to me. Now, they may have said it to you, but they say it to me a lot, and it's, I know I'm called, I just don't know what I'm called to. Now, I know this is Mother's Day, and what we do in this house, we don't do traditional Mother's Day or Father's Day messages. We do a message for everybody. So I want to make sure that we know where we're coming from. So, men, you can hold on your sheets too, because it's for you also. But as I was praying and asking God about what He wanted me to talk about this morning, He said this message is for someone in here specifically. You need to hear this message. But it's for everybody generally. But there is somebody in here that He has targeted, and this message is for you. But it will pay dividends for everybody who will listen to this word. But people have told me time and time again, I know I'm called, I just don't know what I'm called to. And so what ends up happening is they see somebody who's excited about what they're doing, and they go, you know what, I think I want to do that. And then they begin to pursue that. And they end up off course because God didn't tell them to do that. See, the shortest way to finding out what you're called to is straight ahead. You have to do what's in front of you. If you want to find out what you're called to do, you have to start by doing what's in front of you. And you have to do it with everything you have. You can't do it half-heartedly. And there's two things you need to know when you're doing this. Number one, you got to know the seasons. Because God's always going to bring seasons in your life. And two, you have to know your purpose. And I don't want to over-spiritualize this because people make it really spooky spiritual. It's very simple. All right? Seasons are simple. It's when God tells you to do something, do it. That's the season to do it. When God tells you to do something, and He says, do it now, that's the season. Do it in that season. Do it now. Don't do it later. You have to do it when He tells you to do it. And your purpose is the purpose for everybody. It's the same thing. It's not difficult. Jesus said these are the two greatest commandments. To love the Lord God with all your heart, mind, soul, and love your neighbor as yourself. So your purpose in life is to love God and to love people. Amen. So it doesn't matter what you're doing or where you're doing it, that's your purpose. Well, I'm starting a ministry, okay. Love God and love people. But you don't understand, I'm starting my own business, that's okay. Love God and love people. Well, I'm gonna move to New York, it's okay. You can love God and love people from New York. Your purpose will not change. It's an eternal purpose. Love God and love people. That's your purpose. Nothing difficult about it. That's your purpose. The season is simple. When God says do it in that season. See, I didn't know I was called to be a pastor. That was the furthest thing from my mind. I had, in my high school, when people got saved, I told this to the men the other day, when people got saved in my high school and they were my friends, they stopped talking to me. They wouldn't hang out with me anymore. And I asked them, why? And they said, because you're like the worst sinner I knew. So I knew you would never come to Christ. And so they avoided me. And now a lot of them are backslidden. And I'm a pastor. How does that work, right? But I had a friend of mine who would go to church like almost every day. When we were kids, we'd play, and they'd call him in, he had to go, because he had to go to church. And I'd go, why are you going to church every day? Like, man, why are your parents punishing you that way? I didn't know. I was a heathen, right? Didn't know. Then one day he invited me to church. And so I went. One day. As bad as a sinner as I was, that seed got in me. See, it just takes one moment. And that seed got inside of me. And, almost 25 years later, 23 years later, I got saved. But it all started with the seed. See, some of you are waiting for your families to come into the kingdom, and you're thinking, when's this ever going to happen? Did you ever plant a seed? Did anybody ever plant a seed? Because that seed will not go to waste. That seed will come to fruition. Amen. God bless you. Amen. Amen. This is a Pentecostal church, so sneezing is okay if you say amen afterwards. But coughing is not allowed because it's against our religion. But today I want to talk to you about seasons. Because seasons are important.
Amen.
We have to understand the seasons. Amen. So are you over at 1 Chronicles chapter 12?
Yes.
Father, we thank you for your word this morning. God, speak to us through your word. Give us ears to hear what the Spirit of God is saying in this season. Father, that when we leave this room, we'll leave it differently than when we came in. Father, increase us today with your word, and we thank you for it. In Jesus' name, amen. All right. 1 Chronicles chapter 12, verse 32. And of the sons of Issachar, who had understanding of the times, say understanding of the times, to know what Israel ought to do, their chiefs were 200, and all their brethren were at their command. The sons of Issachar knew the times and the seasons. How valuable is it to know times and seasons? It's extremely valuable, especially to a Christian, to understand the seasons of your life and the things and the times that God tells you to do something. It's really important. Now, most of you know I came out of the movie industry. And there is about 120,000 plus people in the Screen Actors Guild. And about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, I got a check from a movie I did when I was a little kid. And the check was for $1.16. $1.16. Now, that $1.16 that I made a couple weeks ago is more money than over 90% of the people in Screen Actors Guild will ever make this year.
Oh my gosh.
I made more money in a couple weeks ago than they'll make over the next year. Think about that for a second. In order to get a pension from Screen Actors Guild, you have to make at least $10,000 a year for 10 consecutive years. If you make it for 9, but don't do it on the 10th, guess what? You got to start all over again. So I know what some of you are thinking. Hey, do you have a pension? Yes, I have a pension. But here's the deal. People come to Hollywood with a dream, armed with a dream. But they don't know the times and the seasons because they come with very little money, with very little formal training, and figure, well, I'm going to get there, and somebody's going to discover me, and while I'm there, I'll use the little money I have to find a place to live, to get a job, and to get some training. And then when they get here, they find out that it goes very quickly, and their dream goes with it. And so, because they don't have an understanding of times and seasons, that they should have been trained up, that they should have been prepared before they ever got here to even have an inkling of a chance to do anything. Now they're behind the 8 ball, they're trying to make up ground, and what ends up happening is most of them end up as waiters, and if it really takes a bad turn, prostitution is in their life. And so they go through all these struggles because they didn't understand the times and the seasons. And so they have this idea about what Hollywood's about until they get there and they realize their dream is totally different than reality. See, come on. If I can make $1.16 from over 30 years ago and make more money than 90% of the people that are in Screen Actors Guild, didn't I tell you something?
Yes.
Go over to 2 Kings. Times and seasons matter, especially for a Christian. If you want to find out what you're called to do what's right in front of you, but do it with everything you have. See, most people want to be, get on television or movies, but most of them only want to do because they want to be famous, not because they love acting. Second Kings, chapter 13 and verse 12 says, Now the rest of the acts of Joash, all that he did, and his might which he fought against Amaziah king of Judah, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the king of Israel? So Joash rested with his fathers, and Jeroboam sat on his throne. And Joash was buried in Samaria with the kings of Israel. Verse 14. Elisha had become sick with illness of which he would die. Then Joash the king of Israel came down to him and went over his face and said, O my father, the chariots of Israel and their horsemen. See, Joash recognized the season of Elisha's life, that Elisha was about to cross over into another realm. And he realized, I'm not going to have him with me anymore. Let's keep reading.
Where are you at?
Verse 15.
What chapter?
13 of 2 Kings. And Elisha said to him, take a bow and some arrows. So he took himself a bow and some arrows. Then he said to the king of Israel, put your hand on the bow. So he put his hand on it. And Elijah put his hand on the king's hand. Now, Elisha putting his hand on the bow with the king is indicative of the fact that you can't do anything on your own. You always need someone to help you.
Yes.
See, God didn't create you to do it by yourself.
Yes.
God connected you to other people that every joint would supply. So you can't do it by yourself. You need other people. And so when he put his hand on the bow, especially for the king needed a priest or a prophet with him to complete his assignment.
Yes.
So he puts his hand on it with him to let him know, as a king, you need a prophetic voice in your life
Yes.
to tell you what's coming on the horizon. Now watch what happens. And he put his hand on the king's hand. And he said, open the east window. And he opened it. See, there are times that most of us Christians, we want God to open the door for us. We want God to open the window for us. But there's times in your life where God will point out the window or the door and ask you to open it.
Yes.
See, you can't be lazy and say, well, I'm not going to let this God do it. No, if God points out the window or the door, you have to open it.
Yes.
So you have to have your ear in tune to what God's saying. So if he's asking you to open the window, open the window. If he's asking you to open the door, open the door. Don't be lazy. Open the door. Then Elisha said, shoot. And he shot. And he said, the arrow of the Lord's deliverance and the arrow of deliverance of Syria. For you must strike the Syrians at Aphek till you have destroyed them. Say, destroyed them.
Destroy them.
Then he said, take the arrows. So he took them. And he said to the king of Israel, strike the ground. So he struck it 3 times and stopped. And the man of God was angry with him and said, you should have struck 5 or 6 times. Then you would have struck Syria till you have destroyed it. But now you will strike Syria only 3 times. So he tells him, shoot the arrow out the window. The arrow goes out the window and hits the ground. He said, that's your deliverance. Then he tells him, take the arrows and strike the ground. Now a lot of people will preach it that he took the arrows in his hand and he banged it against the floor. But most scholars believe that's not what happened. They believe that he took arrows, put them in a bag. When he pulled out the arrows, he started shooting them out the window because they go out the window and they hit the ground. And he's supposed to do it with the vigor and the intensity as though he's fighting them. What he does, he shoots 3 arrows out and stops. And Elisha sees that there's 2 or 3 more arrows in his bag. It makes Elijah angry. Because God can't use a man who will only go halfway. God can't use a person who's not willing to go the distance.
Yes.
See, you need to go the distance. God doesn't have use for you if you can only go halfway.
Yes.
See, he should have shot all the arrows out. You have arrows inside your bag. Why do you leave them there? Finish the job.
Yes.
You don't destroy something until you waste everything in your bag, in your arsenal. If God's going to use you, he needs you to go all the way.
Yes.
He doesn't have a place for a man who's half-hearted.
Amen.
He wants you to go the distance.
Yes.
See, if you're going to find your destiny and what God's called you to do, you need to do it everything you have.
Yes.
You need to go the distance. You will not find your destiny going halfway. You won't find out what you're called to do going halfway.
Yes.
You're going to have to go the distance. You're going to have to put everything you have in what you're doing at the time you're doing it. This king didn't recognize the season he was in. See, this is a microphone. It has a purpose. It's to amplify my voice so everybody can hear me. You can probably hear me without it, but it's to amplify my voice. But if I have a nail that I need to hammer, and I take this microphone and I start banging that nail it may serve a purpose and it may finish the job of knocking that nail into the ground. But, in the same token, it can destroy this mic and its purpose.
Yes.
So when I want to use it for its purpose, it's not going to work the way it's supposed to. Why? Because it wasn't used in the season and the time and for its purpose.
That's good.
It got destroyed because it was used out of its purpose and out of its timing. Let's go over to 1 Samuel chapter 15. I'm not going to be long. I'm just going to go for about 2 or 3 hours. And all our visitors go, what? First Samuel chapter 15. Now watch this. Verse 1 of chapter 15 of 1 Samuel. Samuel also said to Saul, the Lord sent me to anoint you king over his people, over Israel. Now therefore, heed the voice of the words of the Lord. Thus says the Lord of hosts, I will punish Amalek for what he did to Israel, how he ambushed them on the way when he came up from Egypt. Now go and attack Amalek and utterly destroy, say utterly destroy, all that they have, and do not spare them, but kill both man and woman, infant and nursing child, ox, sheep, camel, and donkey. God told Saul to utterly destroy the Amalekites.
Yes.
That was his season. God told him, do it now. This is your season. You do it now. Don't leave anything behind. Destroy everything. Now watch what happens. Verse 7. And Saul attacked Amalek, the Amalekites, from Havilah all the way to Shur, which is east of Egypt. Well, that's a good start. Verse 8. He also took Agag, king of the Amalekites, alive. Well, that's not too good. And utterly destroyed all the people with the edge of the sword. But Saul and the people spared Agag and the best of the sheep, the oxen, the fatlings, the lambs, and all that was good. And they were unwilling to utterly destroy them. But everything they despised and worthless, that they destroyed. Now the word of the Lord came to Samuel, saying, I greatly regret that I have set Saul as king, for he has turned his back from following me, and he has not performed my commandments, and grieved Samuel, and he cried to the Lord all night. God tells him to utterly destroy the Amalekites.
Yes.
And he said, well, I will, but I won't do this because he's the king, and I like all the animals, and I'm going to keep them because they're the best of them. We'll offer them up to you later. That's not what God told him.
Yes.
God gave him a season when this was supposed to happen. And he altered that season because he did not understand the season he was in. Because when you don't operate according to what God told you to operate in the season, you're not going to get that season back. You have to do what God told you to do in the season he told you to do because you're not getting that season back. And if you don't do what God told you to do in the season he told you to do it, what you didn't do can come back and haunt you. So watch this. Let's go to 2 Samuel in chapter 1. Second Samuel chapter 1. Let me know when you're there.
There.
Verse 1. Now this is years after. Now it came to pass, after the death of Saul, when David had returned from the slaughter of the Amalekites, and David stayed 2 days in Ziklag. Now, notice where David came from.
Yes.
David came from the slaughter of the Amalekites. David is fighting enemies he should not be fighting.
Yes.
Because God told Saul in his season to wipe them all out.
Yes.
But because he didn't do it in the season he was supposed to, guess who's showing up and fighting David now? David is fighting a battle he doesn't have to fight.
Well,
See, there's things in your life that you're fighting today that you don't have to be fighting, but you're fighting them because you didn't do what God told you to do in the season He told you to do it. Come on, can I get a witness here? Come on, we've all been through that. We're all fighting things that we shouldn't be fighting because we didn't do what God told us to do in the season He told us to do it. So David is fighting an enemy he shouldn't have any reason to be fighting. They should be off the map. Now watch this. And on the third day, behold, it happened that a man came from Saul's camp with his clothes torn, dust on his head. So when he had came to David, he fell to the ground and prostrated himself. David said to him, where have you come from? And he said to him, I have escaped from the camp of Israel. Then David said to him, how did the matter go? Please tell me. And he answered, the people have fled the battle. Many of the people are fallen and dead. And Saul and Jonathan his son are dead also. So David said to the young man who told him, how do you know that Saul and Jonathan are dead? Then the young man who told them said to him, I happened by chance to be on Mount Gilboa. There was Saul leaning on a spear. Indeed, the chariots and horsemen followed hard after him. When he looked behind him, he saw me and called me. And he said, here I am. And I said, here I am. And he said to me, who are you? And I answered, I am an Amalekite. And he said to me again, please stand over me and kill me, for the anguish has come upon me, and my life still remains in me. So I stood over him and killed him, because I was sure he could not live after he had fallen. And I took his crown that was on his head, and the bracelet that was on his arm, and I have brought him here to you, my Lord. Therefore David took hold of his own clothes, tore them, so that all the men who were with him, so did all the men who were with him. And they mourned and wept and fasted until evening for Saul and Jonathan his son, and for the people of the Lord, for the house of Israel, because they had fallen by the sword. Then David said to the young man who told him, where are you from? And he answered, I am the son of an alien, an Amalekite. Saul failed to do what God told him to do. In the season God told him. God told him, kill all the Amalekites. Because he didn't do it. He didn't do it in the season he told them to do it. An Amalekite came back and killed him. That Amalekite would have never killed him if David took care of business when he should have. See, Saul. When Saul didn't take care of business, he gave birth to something to come back to get him.
Yes.
You have to do what God told you to do in the season He told you to do it.
Yes, yes.
Because what you don't do is going to hinder you the rest of your life and could even kill you.
Yes.
See, when you go to the store and you buy milk, there is an expiration date on milk, right?
Yes.
So, you take the milk and you drink it before the expiration date. But if you have it in your refrigerator and the expiration date has passed and it's months later and you drink it, it's going to make you sick.
Yes.
Why? Because you didn't drink it in the season you were supposed to. Because if you drank it in the season you were supposed to, it would be nourishment to your body. But because you drink it out of the season it was supposed to, it's now poison to you.
Yes.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
You have to do what God told you to do in the season He told you to do it. Otherwise it can become poison to you.
Yes.
Yes.
See, here's the thing. Abraham wanted a son. God told Abraham, I'm going to give you a son. It's going to come out of your own loins. You and Sarah will have a son. But since he couldn't wait for the full season to come, at half season he decided, I'm going to help God along. And so he hooks up with Hagar, with the blessing of Sarah. And they have Ishmael. And the Bible says that even to this day,
Yes.
the son of the flesh is still persecuting the son of the promise.
Yes.
Because you didn't do what God told you to do in the season He told you. What you're trying to do now, you're always going to be persecuted by the thing you gave birth to. Because you try to make something happen in a season that it wasn't a season to happen into.
Yes.
So, because it happened, but it wasn't in the season God wanted to, and it wasn't what God ordained for you to have, it will haunt you the rest of your life. We are still fighting that fight today.
Yes.
Because the sons of the flesh are still fighting against the sons of the Spirit.
Yes.
See, because we believe the entire gospel. We believe in speaking in tongues. We believe that God heals today.
Yes.
We're still fighting against those that say, it passed away already.
Yes.
And they persecute us.
Yes.
That fight's still alive today. Because Abraham didn't take care of it properly in the season God told him to. See, there's things you're fighting today that you step out of a season to create something God told you you were going to have, but you try to make it happen. Now you're fighting that. And you'll be fighting it the rest of your life because you didn't do what God told you to do in the season He told you to do it. Come on, God, give us ears to hear what the Spirit of God is saying.
Yes.
I know this is for somebody in this room.
Yes.
Let's go over to first. We're going to finish right. Go to 1 Samuel chapter 16. We're going to end right here. 1 Samuel chapter 16. Remember, God wasn't happy with Saul, because Saul didn't do what he was supposed to do. So God took his kingdom away from him. Saul got in trouble because Saul did it halfway. Saul didn't go the distance. He stopped short of what God told him to do.
Yes.
God told him to destroy all the Amalekites. He stopped short. He destroyed most of them. But he didn't do all of them.
Yes.
And because he wasn't willing to go all the way, God doesn't have a use for a man to run a kingdom in which he's only willing to go halfway.
Yes.
You have to go all the way. You have to be willing to go all the way. He wasn't willing to give everything he had to what was in front of him.
Yes.
So he wasn't going to finish the race God called him to finish. How many are willing to go all the way?
Amen.
Now the Lord said to Samuel, "How long will you mourn Saul, seeing I have rejected him from reigning over Israel? Fill your horn with oil and go. I am sending you to Jesse the Bethlehemite, for I have provided myself a king among his sons." Let's go over to verse 6. So it was, when they came, that he looked at Eliab and said, "Surely the Lord's anointed is before me." But the Lord said to Samuel, "Do not look at his appearance or his physical stature, because I have refused him. For the Lord does not see as man sees. Man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart." So Jesse called Abinadab and made him pass before Samuel, and said, "Neither has the Lord chosen this one." Then Jesse made Shammah pass, and he said, "Neither has the Lord chosen this one." Thus Jesse made 7 of his sons pass before Samuel, and Samuel said to Jesse, "The Lord did not choose these." And Samuel said to Jesse, "Are all your young men here?" Then he said, "There remains yet the youngest, and there he is keeping the sheep." And Samuel said to Jesse, "Send him here, for we will not sit down till he comes." David was doing what was right in front of him.
Yes.
David was doing it with his whole heart. Because David went and killed a bear and a lion who took the sheep who weren't his. They were his dad's, but they weren't his. He was willing to risk his life for something that wasn't his. And he was doing what was in front of him with everything he had.
Yes.
And guess what? His calling came knocking on his door.
Yes.
See, if you want your calling to come knocking on your door, you need to do what's in front of you with everything you have.
Yes.
See, just because his brothers got there before he did, the calling wasn't for them.
Yes.
They were there standing around seeing if they were the one. David was working the field. God went and picked the one that was working, not the one that was standing.
Yes.
There's no place in Scripture where it says, "And God woke up this guy who was asleep and told him, I have a call of God on your life, and I want you to do this." God calls those who are already working.
Yes.
See, the disciples, where did he find them? On a boat, working.
Yes.
They were doing what was in front of them with everything they had. Just because you come to church doesn't mean you're going to hear your calling. Sitting doesn't get you your calling.
Yes.
Working gets you your calling.
Yes.
Ushering will get you your calling. Playing on the worship team will get you. Working with the children will get you your calling. Helping the children will get you your calling. See, when I was coming, I didn't know I was called to be a pastor, but I worked children's ministry. That's how I found it. That's how I heard the call of God in my life, when I was working with children. I didn't know I was called to be a pastor. I had all kinds of words, but none of them were, "You're going to call to be a pastor." But I found my calling and didn't know it when I was working with children. It was almost like wax on, wax off. Because no matter what you're doing, if you're going to have a business and you're called to have a business, you're going to have to deal with people.
Yes.
If you're called in the ministry, you're going to have to deal with people. And the best way to learn how to deal with people is learn to deal with the little ones. Because you know what? They're going to tell you like it is.
Exactly.
You're going to have to learn how to deal with personalities.
Yes.
Because they're not going to hold back. They're going to tell you the truth. How was that? I didn't like that very much. Or, that was awesome. Can we do that again? They're going to tell you.
Yes.
But at the same time, God's putting something precious in your hand that you get to mold.
Yes.
As you're caring for what God cares about, then God will take care of what belongs to you.
Yes.
As we were teaching the 3rd and 4th graders, God was preparing this house for us 18 years later. Didn't know it. But He found me doing something with my hands.
Yes.
He found Pastor Linda doing something with her hands, helping the children. You don't get called because you're sitting down in a church. You don't get called because you're sleeping and waiting. Well, when God is ready, He'll call me. He probably has you on block right now. You have to be doing something. You got to find something to do. Because it can't be about you.
Yes.
You have to be. That's what the kingdom is about. The kingdom is about helping other people.
Yes.
See, when you're selfish, you're diametrically opposed to the kingdom. The kingdom has no place for selfishness. Well, I just need to be in the main sanctuary because I need to hear the word all the time. I can't sacrifice one Sunday out of 6 to go have children. That's selfish. That's not the kingdom. The kingdom is, where can I help? What can I do? When Pastor Lou and Aida came, they would tell me, hey, we want to keep our pastoralship and be pastors. You know what they told me? Put me anywhere you need me to go. I'll work with children. I'll usher, I'll clean up afterwards, whatever you need me to do. Why? Because when your heart's right, it's about the kingdom.
Yes.
It's all about the kingdom. David was found doing. Are you found doing? Because when you do, you run smack into your calling. It will come to you. At some point in time, I promise you, your calling will come. You won't have to search for it. It's not spooky wookie. Your call will come to you. You'll come face to face with your calling. You don't have to chase after, well, I like what they're doing, so I want to do that. God will give you your calling for you. He wants you to be you, because He made you uniquely.
Yes.
And right here. So He went and brought him in, and he was ruddy with bright eyes and good looking. And the Lord said, arise, anoint him, for this is the one. If you want to be the one, you need to be doing something. And you need to be doing it with everything you have.
Yes.
You can't do it halfway. You can't do it. You can't serve the children halfway. You got to be all in.
That's it.
Because they're going to know it. But more importantly, God will know it. And you'll forfeit what God has for you because you do things for God halfway.
Yes.
It doesn't matter what you're doing for God. Do it all the way and your calling will come. David was taking care of sheep. And God says, because you can take care of these animals, how much more will you be able to take care of my people? You're willing to defend, put your life on the line for sheep, how much more for people? So God went and got him. You see, if you buy a ticket to go on a plane to New York, and you're in LA, and you show up a day early, you're not going to get on the plane. And if you show up a day late, you're not going to get on the plane. See, the thing that was meant to get you there now is the thing that's going to strand you there because you're out of your season. You need to show up in your season. If you go, we go to Disneyland every once in a while. And if I get a locker, I put my stuff in there, I get a combination. And I can open my locker and get my things out. But if I go back the next day and try to use that locker to open that door, it's not going to happen. Why? Because I can't use yesterday's combination to open today's door.
Yes.
Why? Because the season for that combination was yesterday, not today.
Yes.
So I can't open today's door using yesterday's combination. See, there's a season, and it has to be now. So there's some of you, God saying, you need to do something. You need to do something in this house. You need to help this house grow. And it's in you, and it's inside of you. Now's the season, not tomorrow, now. See, because our whole heart intention is that we can grow this church. And so that people can come in and they can get blessed. And they can get their calling. And they can pursue what God wants them to pursue. Because we all love each other, we love this place.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
But that's our heart's desire. How much greater is God's desire?
Yes.
But we have to do it together. We have to do it together. But you won't find what you're called to do unless you're doing what's in front of you with everything you have. So the very first thing, and this is my last thing I'm going to say, is do what's in front of you. Do it with your whole heart.
Yes.
And go all the way. Don't stop halfway. Finish it. Don't be like Abraham thinking, well, it's not happening yet, and so I'm going to make it happen. No, finish it. Keep going until God says it's done. Don't lose heart. Because your calling's right in front of you, and the shortest path to it is straight ahead. Amen. Let's bow our heads.